A very good morning to all. This is P. Kavita, working as an assistant professor, AAA department from RMD Engineering College, and I handle power plant engineering for second year AAA. In Unit 3, nuclear power plants, we will now see the basics of nuclear engineering. So we know that an element is a substance which cannot be further decomposed, and atom is the smallest particle in the chemical reaction. So each and every atom comprises of protons, electrons, and neutrons. Protons are the positive charges, electrons are the negative charges, and neutrons are the neutral charges. So this is the atomic structure of hydrogen. So hydrogen has one proton and one electron. And the ionization is addition of electrons or removal of electrons from an atom. So this was an example of the atomic structure of hydrogen, which has only one proton and one electron. So to this hydrogen, if we had one more electron, the number of negative charges in the hydrogen atom will increase. Or if we reduce the existing electron, the number of negative charges will decrease. So the process of addition or removal of electrons to an atom is called as ionization process, which will alter the positive and negative charges in an atom. So this is the atomic number and mass number. So usually in an atom under normal conditions, the number of protons and neutrons will be same. So atomic number represents the number of protons in an atom, which is represented by Z. And mass number is the total number of protons and neutrons in an atom, which is denoted by letter A. And we know that these are all the content taken from the periodic table. So in the chemistry periodic table, we know that the elements arranged in the periodic table are as hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium, boron, and so on. So it is all arranged in the order of the atomic number. Next, isotopes. So in case of isotopes, for example, this is the isotope of hydrogen. So what does this denote is 1H1, 1H2 and 1H3. So in 1H1 hydrogen, we have one proton and one electron. So in 1H2 hydrogen, we will have one proton, one neutron and one electron. So in 1H3, we will have one proton, one electron and two neutrons. So we already know that the atomic number is the number of protons in an atom. And the mass number is the number of protons and neutrons in an atom. So when we talk about the 1H1, we only have one proton and there are no neutrons available here. It has only one proton and one electron, which is the usual hydrogen. So next, when we're talking about the isotope of hydrogen, which is 1H2 hydrogen, we have one proton, one neutron and one electron. So the mass number over here is equivalent to 2. And the mass number over here is equivalent to 3, which is because of one proton and two neutrons. So this 1H1 hydrogen, when I'm saying 1H1, the initial number 1 represents the number of protons. And H denotes the chemical formula for hydrogen. And the next one I will say is representing the number of 1H1 and 1H2. Okay, there are no neutrons over here. And in this 1H2 hydrogen, we have one proton and one neutron. In 1H3, we have one proton and two neutrons. So mass number is the total number of protons and neutrons available in an atom. So in 1H1, the total number of protons and neutrons is 1. In 1H over here, the total number of protons and neutrons is 2. And over here, the total number is equivalent to 3. That is why this is 1H1 hydrogen, one proton and only one proton. There are no neutrons. So atomic number is 1, mass number is also 1. Over here, atomic number is 1, mass number is 2. And here, atomic number is 1 and mass number is 3. So these are called as the isotopes of hydrogen, which simply means it has the same atomic number but different mass number. In all the 1H1, 1H2 and 1H3 isotopes of hydrogen, all the atomic number is the same, but the difference is only in the mass number due to the number of neutrons availability. So these are called as isotopes. So what is radioactivity is the phenomenon of spontaneous emission of powerful radiations by heavy elements. So we know some elements like uranium, plutonium and all, they exhibit a very heavy radioactive element. The radiations are very heavy. So they are called as radioactive elements, and the radiations are called as radioactive radiations or radioactivity. And the process of exhibiting these powerful radiations are called as radioactivity. And in the radioactive nature of the isotopes, it is measured in terms of half-lifetime, which is the time required for the number of active nuclei to decay to half of its initial number. So the radioactive nature of the isotopes are measured in terms of half-lifetime. So in case of nuclear power plants, nuclear fission process takes place. And in nuclear reactions, we have two different types of nuclear reactions. One is the nuclear fusion process and the second one is the nuclear fission process. And in case of nuclear fusion process, when the energy is released by combining two lightweight nuclei of hydrogen and helium, it is known as nuclear fusion. So we know in case of nuclear fusion, two light nuclei combine together to form a single heavy nucleus. So that is fusion process, nuclear fusion. Whereas in case of a fission process, one heavy nuclei splits into two light nuclei. Okay, one heavy nucleus is splitting up into two different nuclei. So the splitting up of nucleus is called as the nuclear fission process. And in nuclear fission, how does the fission process takes place is when one neutron is hitting on a heavy atom on a heavy nucleus. What happens is the nucleus splits into two light nuclei and it further produces three different neutrons, releasing enormous amount of heat energy. So that heat energy has been utilized in the power plants to convert water into superheated steam, which is used to drive the turbine generator set to produce electricity. So this is the diagram for a nuclear fission process. So as I told you, when the neutron is hitting on one heavy nuclei, this heavy nucleus over here taken is uranium-235, which is also used in the nuclear power plants. So when there is a bombardment of this neutron on this uranium atom, it produces two different light nuclei. So it splits into two light nuclei and it produces three different neutrons. Three new neutrons are produced, and in this process, enormous amount of heat energy has been generated. So what happens is these neutrons will further hit another nuclei, which will further split into two different nuclei. So even over here, this neutron is splitting into a heavy nucleus, it is hitting on a heavy nucleus, which is splitting into two different nuclei. In each and every fission process, two different nuclei is generated, three neutrons, and enormous amount of heat energy is also produced. So collectively, all the heat energy from the fission process has been utilized to convert water into superheated steam. And in this chain reaction keeps on multiplying and it goes on and on and on. So there is a rapid multiplication during the fission process, and the whole fissionable material is disintegrated. And the reaction will become self-sustaining only if at least one fission neutron is available for causing the fission of another nucleus. So what it means is, we already know when one neutron is hitting on a uranium nucleus, it splits into two light nuclei. And also three neutrons are generated. And amongst the three generated neutrons, only one neutron is available to carry forward the chain reaction further. And the remaining two different neutrons are absorbed by the control rods. So that is the purpose of control rods in the nuclear power plants and the nuclear reactors. Because if the availability of neutrons are very high in the nuclear reactor, more number of fission process will take place and the chain reaction will keep on multiplying, since it is going to happen in a very rapid rate. So if an n number of nuclear reactions are taking place, enormous amount of heat also will be generated and the number of neutron availability will also increase. So if it keeps on multiplying without any control reaction, there are more chances for the entire reactor to create a massive explosion, to lead to a massive explosion. So that could lead into a huge disaster. In order to avoid those mishappenings, what we do is, the three neutrons which are generated by the fission process, only one neutron is allowed to carry forward the chain reaction further. The remaining two neutrons will be absorbed by the control rods. So this is also an example of the chain reaction. And the reason for controlling the fission process is because neutron is hitting a nucleus and this nucleus is splitting into two light nuclei, and further it is being hit by another neutron and further splits up into two different nuclei, and the number of uranium nucleus will also increase, as well as the number of neutrons generated will also increase. So the fission process takes place only because of the neutrons hitting on a uranium atom, heavy nucleus. So if we control the number of neutrons availability in the reactor, thereby we can also control the chain reaction. So that is the purpose of having control rods, to control the chain reaction so that normal operation takes place in the reactor. So the requirements of fission process will be, neutrons emitted in fission must have adequate energy to cause fission of another nuclei. So the neutrons must have enough energy to hit on a heavy nucleus, which would split it into two different light nuclei. And the neutrons produced must be able to sustain the fission process, and it should also increase the rate of fission. So the neutrons should also have the potential to carry forward another set of chain reactions or fission processes. And the process must be accompanied by the liberation of energy. So this process also involves liberation of enormous amount of heat energy. And it must be possible to control the rate of energy liberated, which is using the control rods, we reduce the number of free neutrons available in the nuclear reactor. So that is the control nuclear fission process. To maintain a sustained control fission process, for every 2 or 3 neutrons released, one must be allowed to strike the nucleus, and if the ratio is less, the reaction will die out, and if it is greater, it will grow uncontrollably. So what it means is, in the chain reaction, as we know, 3 neutrons are generated. So at least a minimum of 1 neutron should be allowed to further carry forward the chain reaction with another heavy nucleus, and 2 neutrons in case of excess of availability, we can absorb the free neutrons using control rods. But if we absorb all the neutrons, what will happen is the fission process will come to an end. So no more further fission process will take place, and we will not have enough heat energy in the nuclear reactors. So if all the neutrons are absorbed, also the fission process will come to an end, which also should not take place in the reactor, because it has to be a continuous process to convert water into steam, which will be driving the turbines, which will also be connected to a generator to produce electricity. So for continuous supply, the fission process should also be in continuous manner. And if we do not control the nuclear chain reaction, enormous amount of nuclear chain reactions will take place, and it will lead to an atomic explosion, which could be a very severe dangerous situation. So we should know that we should be able to control the chain process using control rods, depending upon the requirement of power, and also maintaining the pressure and temperature inside the nuclear reactor. So the reactor temperature also should be maintained within the limits along with the pressure. So this is the controlled fission reaction. So initially neutron is hitting on the heavy nuclei, and it is generating 2 different light nucleus and 3 neutrons. So this neutron has been absorbed by the control rod, and only 1 neutron has been allowed to further carry the fission process. And even in this, for example, if this is generating only 2 neutrons, 1 neutron is allowed to further carry the chain reaction, and other neutron is absorbed by the control rods. Whereas in case of nuclear fusion, we know fusion process is nothing but combining of 2 light nuclei into 1 single nucleus. So that is what is called as a nuclear fusion process. In nuclear physics and nuclear chemistry, fusion is the process by which multiplied charge atomic nuclei join together to form a heavy nucleus. It is also accompanied by a release or absorption of energy, and it can be released by fusion of 2 light elements. And the power that fuels the sun and stars in nuclear fusion, in a hydrogen bomb, 2 isotopes of hydrogen, deuterium and tritium, are fused to form a nucleus of helium and a neutron. So we know that nuclear fusion is the process of combining of 2 light nuclei, which is going to form 1 single heavy nucleus. And this is the nuclear fusion process. We have the isotopes of hydrogen. This hydrogen is called as deuterium, and this hydrogen is called as tritium. So these light nuclei are combined together in the fission process to form helium, and it also generates 1 neutron in the fusion process. Also, enormous amount of heat is released or absorbed in the fusion process. So these 2 light nuclei combine together in fusion process and produces 1 heavy nucleus, which is the helium. So the difference between nuclear fission process and nuclear fusion process is, in fission process, the process is a heavy unstable nuclei splits into fragments of equal masses. Whereas in fusion, it's just combining of 2 light nuclei to form 1 heavy nucleus. And the amount of radioactive material is very high, and the amount of radioactive material is less in the fusion process. And higher health hazards in fission process, and the health hazards are also existing in fusion, but the amount is less compared to fission. And fission occurs spontaneously at room temperature, whereas fusion occurs at a very high temperature of 30 million Kelvin. And fission is a chain reaction, whereas fusion is not a chain reaction, and fission can be performed under controlled conditions, and fusion is not usually performed under controlled conditions. So these are the basics of nuclear engineering, from which we can understand the nuclear power plant operation also. Thank you.